Looking for NFL football? Stop right here. You found your home for weekly NFL talk and fantasy football. Coming to you live from the BackupPunter.com. This is the Backup Punter Podcast. Now, here's your host, the man who thinks fullbacks win championships, Keegan Matheson.
What's up? Welcome back to the show. This is episode number 18 of the Backup Punter Podcast. Training camp is on. The pads are on. It's no longer just a glorified soccer walkthrough. Real football is upon us right now. So we're going to talk fantasy football today throughout the final installment of our division by division preview for the 2015 NFL season. We've gone through the entire AFC, and last week on the podcast we touched on the NFC North and East. So we've got the South and West left. We're going to go right through that, tell you who's in, who's out, and why is each team going to win and lose. Like I said last week, I don't care if you're the Jaguars, there's a reason your team could win this year. And I don't care if you're the Seahawks or the Packers, there's a reason you could lose. So we're going to go through that and really get you set for the year that is coming, because it's easy to lose track of what's going on. So your fantasy drafts are probably coming up pretty soon. I know I've got one next week myself, one the week after. So after this podcast, we're really going to dive into some rankings, some sleepers. You know I hate that term because it implies you know something that no one else knows, which is rarely the case. You know, I get a kick out of this, and if you can, go back and Google 2014 fantasy sleepers. You'll see a lot of stuff like Justin Hunter of the Tennessee Titans. He was the big sleeper last year because he's big, fast. He just needs to put it together. There's a reason players are sleepers. It's because they haven't really done anything yet. This year, you're going to see a lot of the same thing, and if you look at a list of 10 sleepers, maybe one of them's going to pan out, but everyone else in your league is looking at that same list. And the guy in your league who doesn't really follow the NFL as closely as the rest of your buddies, he's the one that's really going to look at that list and really overdraft those players and say, hey boys, I got a sleeper. Try not to let that be you. Overdrafting the guys that are on these sleeper lists, it's something that has killed me often. So I'll go through some of the sleepers who aren't sleepers, who are just dead. They're not sleeping. So that'll be next week on the show, and of course, the articles will start to come at thebackupunter.com. I'm finally going to stick my chest out and put some numbers on some real rankings here. That's thebackupunter.com, and for the podcast, you can follow along on iTunes, on Stitcher, on YouTube, however you listen to your shows. Follow along the Backup Punter Podcast. You can check out the last few weeks. Get yourself entirely up to date for the season that is coming. Now, as always, the Backup Punter Podcast, it's brought to you by DynastySportsEmpire.net Fantasy Sports. So whether you're going NFL like I am, or if you're into hockey, baseball, basketball, check them out today. Visit them on Twitter, DSE_football. That's DSE_football. Get involved in a Dynasty Fantasy Startup League. They start at $50. It's the cream of the crop, fantasy football-wise. So say hi, tell them I sent you. Now, in terms of news this week, I usually like to touch on a little bit of news, unless it's DeflateGate news. You guys know how much I hate DeflateGate, so I kind of want to make this my last word on anything until the final resolution. And I think a big issue with DeflateGate has been that everything is kind of passed off as, oh, we're waiting for a resolution here. Oh, we're going to have a ruling on the appeal. Oh, we're going to have a ruling on that appeal. Really, if this goes to courts, it could be another year. It could be more than a year. This has turned into the most ridiculous NFL story that I've ever seen. And I'm not saying this to sensationalize it or anything. I mean, if Tom Brady took arrow to footballs, should he have? No. Do I give a damn? At this point, I don't anymore. We are more outraged about what Tom Brady allegedly did than we are about Adrian Peterson, Greg Hardy, Ray McDonald, all of that, Ray Rice. And I know you're probably sitting there saying, oh, no, I think that's way worse. Turn on the TV. Read some articles. People are losing their damn minds about this stuff. And what it is, it's reality television. People grab onto Tom Brady's case more than they grab onto, Ray Rice, Greg Hardy, because it's comfortable drama. And that's what reality TV is. I don't care if you're watching Survivor, Big Brother, The Bachelor, it's comfortable drama. There's something there that makes you say, whoa, but it's not enough to actually matter. Go to work tomorrow. Go to the water cooler. Do offices still have water coolers? I'm not an office man. Go over to the water cooler or gathering station and just say to a group of people, so guys, about that Tom Brady DeflateGate. And you'll get a couple of the people there say, yeah, that's pretty crazy. You'll get a conversation. Go back to that same water cooler a couple hours later and say, guys, how about Greg Hardy, that domestic violence situation there? You're going to get some really awkward looks, dead silence, and those people probably aren't going to talk to you for the rest of the day because it's not comfortable, which is stupid. That's wrong. But that is why DeflateGate has become this ridiculous thing. And I tweeted this out last week, and for everything I say that's wrong, I think I'm right about this thing. DeflateGate coverage is to NFL Network, is to Fox Sports, ESPN, what Donald Trump coverage is to CNN. It's this ridiculous thing that's jumped the shark, but people can't get enough of it. The DeflateGate coverage on NFL Network, well, it's just bad to start with because of the medium you're getting it through. But we talk about it, and we talk about it. But what's happening? Now there's the allegations that Tom Brady destroyed his cell phone, which Stephen A. Smith had the scoop on. I mean, this thing is just going down the gutter fast. But props to Stephen A. for doing maybe the first thing correct in his career. So the new allegation is that Tom Brady destroyed his cell phone with the incriminating evidence on it. He says that the cell phone broke itself. He was upgrading to an iPhone. There's 1,000 articles online about Tom Brady upgrading to an iPhone now. That's how much this is just going sideways. So, we're in this kind of a quiet zone right now this week. We've come into a bit of a lull in the news cycle with DeflateGate. I wouldn't be surprised if this gets tied up in courts for a long time. And I wouldn't be surprised if Tom Brady starts week 1 for the New England Patriots. And starts all 16 games. Wouldn't you love it for Tom Brady to just go out, win the Super Bowl this year and retire? Skip the suspension? Wouldn't that be the most Patriots thing you've ever seen? And one thing I do love about all this is how Bill Belichick has handled the media questions. I can't imagine a job less comfortable than asking Bill Belichick questions on media day. And sometimes if I saw him answering like that, I'd say, oh, Bill, you're being a bit of a prick. But I'd be answering the same way. It's just turned into a reality show that people are obsessed with because it's comfortable. And if you have some free time today, or if you're stressed out and you need to be cheered up, or if you're feeling down on yourself and you just need a little pick-me-up, go to Twitter and search #FreeBrady. That's Free Brady, like Tom Brady's in jail or something. Some of the tweets that you'll see from Patriots fans. Now, this isn't a Pats bashing thing. I know and love many Patriots fans. Don't get me wrong. In my part of the world, a lot of Pats fans. But some of the things that you see Patriots fans tweeting out is hilarious. And I think it was Bart Hubbuck. Hubbuck? I think I'm pronouncing it right. He tweeted out something that was funny about the whole Brady ridiculousness. And a Patriots fan replied to him with Tom Brady's stats through training camp. Something like, oh, well, Tom Brady's completed 69 of whatever passes for 70.1% in training camp. And you think, oh my God. How far have we gone over the line? Because of some footballs that weren't blown up enough. If anyone doesn't remember, the Patriots absolutely kicked the Colts' ass in that game. It wasn't close. Now, yes, we need to worry about the deflated footballs going back further than that. But let me tell you, the Colts could have put 15 men on the field that game and they still would have lost by 1 million. So let's please, collectively, as a nation, as a people, as a species, as a planet, let's move past DeflateGate and let's all agree that no matter what happens next in the NFL, because Somebody's going to do something terrible this year because it's the NFL. It's how this league works, and it's why by the day I'm getting less and less certain in my ability to say, yes, I believe in the NFL. But when the next bad thing happens this year, for the love of God, don't put the word gate after it. Don't. So now we're going to move into our previews, starting with the NFC South and never talking about DeflateGate again. Starting in the NFC South, this division also, you can say it without a lisp sometimes, it fascinates me. The Panthers came out of this division last year. They got, they crept in. This was a division that you expected the Saints to rise up and grab. It seemed like every team in the division was 2-14 by the end of the year. Nobody rose to the occasion. This year, somebody will. Is that going to be the New Orleans Saints? Is that the Falcons? Is their defense going to do enough there? Can the Panthers take it back? I don't think it's going to be the Buccaneers, but it's wide open. And I think the Saints are the most fascinating team of all here, so we're going to start with them. So who have they lost in the offseason? Well, they lost Jimmy Graham and Kenny Stills, two of Drew Brees' top options. That's a little curious to me, but aren't we being a little quick to write off Drew Brees? Sorry to circle back to Tom Brady already, but doesn't Tom Brady do a lot with very little in terms of receiving every year? I think it'll be okay. They lost Ben Grubbs, which I'm worried about, and they lost Curtis Lofton. Junior Gillette is gone, now a member of the Washington Redskins. If you haven't seen the video of Junior Gillette on the beach, where he takes off his belt, and he hits a woman with it, and he's swinging it at this group of men as they try to take him to... It was like he was on, I don't know what he was on. If he was drinking a lot of something. And then the Twitter tirade he went on afterwards, he was calling out Coach Sean Payton, saying that Coach Payton shows up drunk to practice, saying he's addicted to Molly, calling out a fellow teammate saying he walked in on his wife with another man, putting all this on Twitter. But along come the Redskins and say, hey, you sound like a good idea. The Redskins are just terribly run. You don't need to listen to my podcast to know that. But Junior Gillette's gone, and that leaves the Saints in even a worse cap situation. And I feel bad for them because they did this to themselves, but I like the Saints. And I feel bad that Junior Gillette did this to them. But what an absolute idiot Junior Gillette is. I hope he stays healthy. You don't wish injury on anyone, but I don't wish success on the guy. So who did they add? Mark Ingram's back. That's a big move for them. And C.J. Spiller. Max Unger is in. Anthony Spencer, Brandon Browner, Stephon Anthony, Andrus Peat in the draft. Two picks that, I thought Stephon Anthony was a bit early, but I think he fits that defense really well. And Andrus Peat was just a tackle that I absolutely loved in that draft. I think he was, maybe the most NFL ready, smart as hell, and he's going to step in right away. So why can this team win? Well, like I said, that Drew Brees, Tom Brady comparison. Everyone's looking at this roster and saying, well, what's Drew Brees going to throw to? Well, this Saints scheme is meant to elevate players. Look back through guys like, Devery Henderson, all these type of guys that have come to the Saints and done really well. Does the offensive talent matter on a team like this as much as it would matter on a team like Atlanta or Tampa Bay within the division? I don't think it does. Now, C.J. Spiller, Mark Ingram, I think they're going to take some heat off Drew Brees too and open the field up for Brandon Cooks, who I think is going to have a huge year. I'll get to him a little later. The offensive line, if that can do well, protect Drew Brees. Drew Brees can figure it out. We seem to think that he had this disastrous year last year. He didn't. By Drew Brees' 40 touchdown, 5,000 yard standards, sure, wasn't up to par. But this guy isn't falling off a cliff right now. He's not Peyton Manning, who's going to get to week 12 and not be able to throw the ball 20 yards. He's fine. Within this system, he's fine. Now, why are the Saints going to lose? That defense, I think. And then you can get into the whole issue of dysfunction on the team. Does that even matter? Is that going to affect the on-field stuff? I've never bought into that too much. But they're in cap hell. The defensive talent might still be a year away. Kenny Vaccaro, can he bounce back with a big year? He did struggle early last year, but he's as talented as any safety in the league outside Earl Thomas. He's got all the talent you need. But I'm optimistic about the New Orleans Saints this year. I really am. Especially if they can turn it around at home. That's the thing that was an outlier last year. People said, the Saints have lost their edge at home. No, they haven't. They play 8 home games a year. If a couple balls bounce the wrong way, then a 5-3 year turns into a 3-5 year at home. It's such a small sample size, an NFL schedule, that it annoys the hell out of me. And this is kind of a victim of the 24/7 news cycle in the NFL. We pick things apart too much, and that's what happened with the Saints last year. They were really, really picked apart, fine-tooth comb, and this year I think we're just going to see, hey, the Saints weren't as bad as we thought they were. They're not as good as they once were, but I think they can go 9-7 this year. With the weak division, I think they've got a very good chance of winning it. Now looking at the Atlanta Falcons, they lost Steven Jackson, no great loss. Harry Douglas, no great loss. And Sean Weatherspoon, they'll survive. Added Brooks Reed, a linebacker that I do like. I think he's still got some talent, some room to go before his ceiling, for sure. Vic Beasley, absolutely love Vic Beasley. He's going to help them get to the passer. Jalen Collins, the cornerback at LSU, he might need a year, might need 2 years. He's raw, very raw. But he's going to help that secondary slowly grow under the new coaching staff. And then Tevin Coleman, the running back, one of these fantasy hot picks. So why are the Falcons going to win this year? I think it's got to be that running game that sets them apart. Matt Ryan can get it done. Roddy White is still fine. I'm not going to entertain any of this stuff about Roddy White. He's going to fall off a cliff. He's a fine number 2 receiver. A lot of teams would take him as a number 2. Some would take him as a number 1 right now. But this running game, Tevin Coleman and Devonta Freeman, who's it going to be? This is another one of those situations, and I sound like a broken record, but I almost want it to be someone else's problem in my fantasy drafts. This is a situation where if you do strike it rich and you find an 80-20 carry splits or 75-25 split in carries, you're going to be a happy man, because I think this offense can really open up some opportunities for a running back with Matt Ryan throwing it around, Julio Jones stretching the field. But I think you're going to get more into a 55-45 type split. And you're going to have weeks where Devonta Freeman has 2 rushes for 96 yards and a touchdown, and Tevin Coleman has 20 carries for 78 yards. And you just get into that frustrating middle ground where you don't pick the right guy. And if you hit on it in my league and you whoop me, congratulations. But I don't want that to be my problem. There's risks that I would rather take. And I think that's the best way to frame it. And that's the best way to look at risks like this. Yes, it's a good risk to take, but is there another risk that you'd feel a little more comfortable with? That you feel like you have a bit more of an edge when you do it? That's how I feel here. And I think Vic Beasley's going to boost that pass rush a lot. I think he does have the talent from year 1 to go after the passer. He still needs to refine his technique like any edge rusher does. But his raw physical talent is already there, and that's going to get him by. Kind of, just like a college rusher does, where he doesn't really need that much technique. Beasley's still going to get by a little bit on that in year 1, just because he's so talented, and he's so fast off the edge. So why are the Falcons going to lose? I'm not sure if enough has been done defensively. They might be a year away with Beasley developing, Collins developing. That defensive line terrifies me. And not in the good way either. I think they're going to get run all over this year. I'm really worried about them against the run. And if I'm looking for a hole on offense, I don't know why they haven't gone out and gotten an impact tight end. Now, I guess I'm just so used to Tony Gonzalez being with the Atlanta Falcons, but why weren't they in the market for even a mid-level guy? You know what I mean? Even someone like a Jordan Cameron, not exactly him, but someone on that tier. Because I think that could really, really open up this offense. Brings the linebackers back on their heels a little bit for Coleman and Freeman. Brings the safeties down a bit to open things up for White and Julio Jones. I just think that's a logical fit. I'm surprised they haven't made more of an upgrade there, but again, this defensive line, I think the Falcons are going to get run all over, and I think they're going to struggle with ball control this year. I really think they are. I see them around 7-9. I don't think they will push the Saints. I don't think they will. Now on to the Carolina Panthers. Now, Carolina is a team that I do have a soft spot for, I'll admit off the top. Now, they've lost D'Angelo Williams to the Pittsburgh Steelers. They've lost Greg Hardy. I use the term lost quite lightly. I don't know. Byron Bell out there, the tackle. Now, they've added Charles Tillman, Peanut Tillman, if you ask John Gruden, so he'll be happy. Shaq Thompson, one of my least favorite picks in the draft, but Riverboat Ron Rivera, he'll figure out a way to use Shaq Thompson, and I hope he does work, because he's one of these guys, it's a 5% chance he does, but if he does, it'll be pretty exciting. And then Devin Funchess, the big tight end wide receiver hybrid from Michigan, who I think should have gone back to school, but again, if he clicks big. So why are the Panthers going to win this year? Well, healthy Cam Newton is number one. The offensive line they're putting him behind really scares me. Cam Newton, time after time after time, he has been beaten around, whether it's on the football field or whether he's flipping his truck, and I still don't know if we've really seen Cam Newton string together 6-8 weeks at 100% health. Now, is anyone at 100% for 6-8 weeks in the NFL? I don't know. But Cam Newton especially, he's always so battered. The hits he takes, a little bit his fault too, but these tackles need to protect him. So a healthy Cam will help the Panthers win, and so will Jonathan Stewart. He's got to be healthy too. But he's one of these guys getting a little later into his career. I loved him out of college. I've always loved Jonathan Stewart. His upper thighs are at least as big around as my waist. I don't know how he buys pants. But if he can put together even 14 healthy games, I think he's a lock to go over 1,000 yards. He's a risk that I do want to take in fantasy drafts if I can get him at a decent value. I guess I'm pulling on my own heartstrings here with Jonathan Stewart, but if he can stay healthy and take that pressure off Cam Newton, handle some of those short yardage situations where Cam Newton has taken a beating, that will really help them long term. And then on defense, Luke Kuechly, Thomas Davis. I mean, Luke Kuechly is one of the few players in the NFL where I will watch his team play just to see a defensive player. Now, there's, you can say the same for guys like, Sherman and Revis and stuff, but you can watch a whole game and only see them on the TV 3 or 4 times. Luke Kuechly is in the middle of every play, and he's a guy where, as long as the Panthers don't play over the Packers this week, or any week in the NFL season, I'm going to have the Panthers up on the screen just to watch Luke Kuechly because it is fantastic. Now, why are they going to lose? That offensive line. Again, I won't beat it to death here, but I don't think that's enough to protect Cam Newton. I hope to God I'm wrong, because I do love the Panthers, but we'll see. Now, I see them going in around that 8-8 level. If Devin Funchess can be more than just a big plodding receiver, if he can actually create any bit of separation and help out Cam Newton, if Kelvin Benjamin can grow from last year, even though I think he might be close to his ceiling. Like I see 1,200, 1,250 being his ceiling. I don't think he's going to be one of these Julio Jones types that stretches the field for 1,500, 1,600. He needs help. He's a great receiver, but he needs help. So if Funchess can help out that offense, Stewart stay healthy, then maybe they can bump it up to 9-7, really push those Saints. But right now, I see them about a 500 team. On to the Buccaneers. They've added Henry Melton, Bruce Carter, Sterling Moore, a young man by the name of Jameis Winston. Now they've lost Anthony Collins, Michael Johnson, that's a deal that didn't work out, Mason Foster, Deshaun Golson. So these Buccaneers, they were the worst team in football last year. Not in terms of talent, just in terms of record. So I trust them to bounce back a bit this year. Lovie Smith is in the building, and they just didn't put anything together last year. It's, I could get into it on an entire podcast of its own, but they just straight up didn't put things together. Now with Jameis Winston there, I think they are going to become a much better team, first and foremost, in the red zone. Vincent Jackson, Mike Evans, and a tight end that I am probably going to draft in the 15th round of most of my drafts. So just turn this off if you're in one of my leagues, but it's Austin Seferian-Jenkins. All of those guys are large human beings. I think Jameis Winston is going to have a good time in the red zone, and I think his touchdown totals are going to be pretty decent there. Then you've got Doug Martin. Charles Sims out of the backfield. Charles Sims, it's one of these annoying storylines where he's kind of, he belongs to the new regime, so they want to get him starts, but I didn't see it from him last year. Now he's full health now. We'll see. But Doug Martin looks like the starter going into this. It's a contract year. He sees dollar signs, and I'm not saying that in a bad way. I mean, go get your contract, Doug Martin. He's going to be running hard. If he can get them to the red zone, I think Jameis can take care of it. But with him, interceptions will be the worry again. Now, why are they going to lose? I don't like their secondary. They're very weak at cornerback behind Alteron Werner. I love Alteron Werner. Big fan of his. But there's not much going on behind them. Weak at safety as well. So I'm afraid that they are going to get down early in a lot of games. That another team is going to come out throwing against them, which will put Jameis Winston in a situation where he needs to throw his way back into games. And I don't like it when rookie quarterbacks have to do that week 1, week 2, week 3. Later in the season, sure, grab the reins, but it doesn't allow much time for a learning curve when that happens. So I see them going around, maybe, we'll call it 5-11, maybe get it up to 6-10. But I think it's going to be one of these seasons in Tampa Bay where they finish out of the playoff picture, but it's an encouraging finish. People won't be upset at the end of the season. There will be enough reason for hope when you see Jameis Winston going to Mike Evans. And I actually have a question involving Mike Evans here. So after we have worked our way through that NFC South, we're going to take a quick fantasy football minute here. I've got 2 questions I received over Twitter. First one is from Rodney Hines, friend of the show, and it is a keeper question. And I love these questions, so send them in at the backup punter if you have a keeper question. Should I keep X, keep Y? I'll try to help you out. So Rodney says, keeper question for you. I can keep one of the following players: Alfred Morris, Mike Evans, Brandon Cooks, or CJ Anderson. Right off the bat, I would narrow that down to Mike Evans and CJ Anderson. Love Brandon Cooks. If you listen to this podcast, you know I love Alfred Morris. I think that I must be getting old quickly or something. I love the simplicity of Alfred Morris. But between Mike Evans and CJ Anderson, who's it going to be? Mike Evans, in my opinion, has the potential to be top 3 or even lead the league in touchdowns from the receiver position. CJ Anderson, if he does play and start every week, has the potential to be a top 5 running back. So it depends on your roster where you need it more and where you think you can get value in the draft. For example, if keeping Mike Evans just gives you one more receiver spot to fill, then you can probably do that. If it were me, I would go with CJ Anderson. My worry is that, look at Monty Ball last year. He was supposed to be the next big thing in fantasy. Again, that's one of those things we forget. The year before, I think even the year before last, Monty Ball was supposed to be the big back in Denver. Noshawn Moreno emerged, and I had 2 different teams where I picked up Noshawn Moreno, and he saved my season. Week after week, he was putting up 20, 24, 25. Went on a huge run. But that shows you what a running back can do with Peyton Manning. And I think with CJ Anderson, even if he does lose some snaps, there's going to be so many snaps to go around. Number one, because the Broncos are good, so they're going to have the football. But also because I think they're going to run the football a lot more with Peyton Manning this year. And that's kind of a generally agreed upon point, but I think they're going to take it further than you'd even expect. Gary Kubiak is there. Gary Kubiak has done some pretty great things with running backs. If I remember correctly, he even turned Steve Slayton into a relevant running back. Gary Kubiak got it going with Arian Foster. This guy can churn out fantasy options. So I like CJ Anderson there. And then we've also got a question here from another friend of the show, Ryan Andrews. And he has a question regarding Arian Foster and Alfred Blue. So let me just bring up this question here from Ryan. So considering his injury history, is there any chance Houston goes to a running back by committee to preserve Arian Foster? Is Alfred Blue worth a look? I did like Alfred Blue out of college. I liked how he ran. And he got a lot of opportunities last year. He went over 500 yards. What worries me is that he only went for 3.1 yards per carry. Again, we're seeing a lot of running backs having that happen to them. Look at Le'Veon Bell. He sucked in his first year. Let's be frank. He was a big running back that couldn't get past the line of scrimmage. Now he's one of the best running backs in football, if not the best. Alfred Blue isn't Le'Veon Bell, but just, so you understand that it's happening a lot. This second-year breakout. I think Alfred Blue could do fine in reserve duty, but I think the Texans are going to keep feeding Arian Foster. He only played 13 games last year, and in terms of NFL.com fantasy points, he finished 5th overall. If you had have stretched his average over all 16 games, if he had have been healthy, I think he would have been right up there, 1st or 2nd. Even if he had have been healthy for 1-2 more games, he would have been a top 3 fantasy option. And I think he is the most underrated of the top 10 fantasy running backs. He's a guy that I'd like to draft in the first round. And I think whether it's Brian Hoyer, Ryan Mallett, I think he's going to have some dump-off pass value, especially if it's Hoyer. And if it's Mallett, then Mallett's going to try to stretch the field to DeAndre Hopkins, and that might open things up a bit for Foster again. Next offseason, I don't know if I'll be as optimistic. I don't know how much Arian Foster has left in him before these nagging muscle injuries, and it's not like he's out there breaking legs. It just seems to be a strain, a pull that lasts, and then he's not at 100%. And it gets frustrating when you have to sit there up until 12:55 Eastern time waiting for the final word on Arian Foster every week. You got better things to do. But I still like him this year, and I still think Alfred Blue is only going to see maybe a few carries a game to keep Arian Foster from getting 25, 28. But I still think Foster's good for 20-plus touches a game. And I really like him. I really do. So send in your fantasy football questions, your life questions, your relationship questions. Any question you may have to the Backup Punter. At the Backup Punter on Twitter, like the page on Facebook by the same name, or visit thebackuppunter.com, where there will be some fantasy football content coming to you soon. So we're on to the NFC West. We're going to finish up this entire preview series. Going to start out with the Arizona Cardinals now. Who did they lose? Darnell Dockett. Good football player, hilarious Twitter owner. He owns a Twitter handle that is, man, I don't even know how to describe it. Go follow the guy. It never crosses the line of being too offensive to the point where a team would do something, but everything he tweets makes you say, "Oh God." It's pretty fascinating. They also lose Antonio Cromartie. They've added Mike Iapati, one of the better signings of this offseason. Lamar Woodley, Sean Weatherspoon went into the draft and grabbed themselves DJ Humphries. Long-term left tackle potential there. Very mobile. And then in the 3rd round, they grabbed, running back David Johnson, who used to be a wide receiver. Probably one of the best receiving backs in this entire draft class. I don't think that he's going to do much in terms of taking away snaps from Andre Ellington. David Johnson, like I said at the top of the show, this is going to be one of those guys where you see, oh, he's a sleeper. He's a sleeper. I mean, I don't buy that. He's not a guy I'd waste a draft pick on, quite frankly, unless something really changes in the next week. But I think Andre Ellington is going to be fed the football. I really do. So why are they going to win? The offensive line. Mike Iapati, love him. DJ Humphries, love the guy. They need to protect Carson Palmer. Carson Palmer is getting old. He needs to stay healthy. And they invested in that. They saw a problem, they went out and fixed it. Good on them. A lot of teams don't do that, and it frustrates me. So even if you have to spend money, if you've got a problem, fix it. Get on with your year. That's what the Cardinals have done. So why are they going to lose? Well, that's secondary behind Patrick Peterson. It leaves a little to be desired. I think a lot of the times even Patrick Peterson himself leaves something to be desired. I do think he's a little overrated. I'm not trying to be, on my high horse here saying that one of the better players in the league is overrated, but I don't consider him in that best cornerback in the league conversation. I think the only reason we talk about that is because Patrick Peterson says it about himself, and I don't buy that for a minute. And why else are they going to lose? Well, Carson Palmer's 35. He's never won a playoff game. Let that sink in for a second. For whatever reason, even though he spent time with the Bengals and the Raiders, I've always associated Carson Palmer with a higher level of success than he has had. 0 playoff wins. I think he's only appeared in 2 playoff games. Now, we're talking about regular season, so I think the Cardinals, just because they're so well coached, I think they will go 10-6. I'll give them a 10-6 record on the year. And I don't think they're going to go on their big starting run like they did, but they're just going to be one of these teams that is fundamentally sound. You're not going to hear a lot about them, but by the end of the year, you're going to look at this and say, oh, wow, Cardinals are in the playoffs. How about that? They're just so well coached. Now, my beloved San Francisco 49ers. You know there's no one I love like the damn Niners. They have lost Frank Gore, one of the treasures of the National Football League. And about that, I'm not being sarcastic. Love Frank Gore. They've lost Michael Crabtree. Don't much care. Anthony Davis, retired for a couple years. I'm still suspicious of that. Mikey Iupati, gone to the Cardinals. Justin Smith, retired. Patrick Willis, retired. Chris Borland, retired. There's more names on the list, too. They've lost a lot. They went out and signed Darnell Dockett from the Cardinals. Reggie Bush, who again is more TMZ than NFL. And Torrey Smith, away from the Baltimore Ravens. They gave Torrey Smith way too much money. He's not going to give them what they need for that. I don't know. I don't know if he's even going to get that 1,000 yards this year. I hope he does, because I really do like Torrey Smith a lot. I like the person very much. But I don't understand how he fits value-wise in this Niners offense. And that's why I have them losing. Mikey Iupati was the fuel of their running game. He was their best run blocker by a lot. Frank Gore made his career of putting his head down, finding Mikey Iupati, and running behind him. I think that's going to hurt. Then you look at their wide receivers. Well, Anquan Boldin, one of my favorite wide receivers of all time, but he's 35. I still think he's going to outmuscle people. He's got that grown man strength that you don't teach anymore. But he's 35. Can Torrey Smith do enough? I'm not sure he can. And then Colin Kaepernick. I'm not a believer in Colin Kaepernick. He, last year, showed what happens when he's forced to progress through defenses, when he is forced to make reads, and the league caught up to him. The league figured out Colin Kaepernick last year, and Kaepernick didn't have enough help around him, yes, but he really regressed, and that was pretty worrying if you're a 49ers fan. I don't think he's a guy that's going to put a team on his back and run through a game. And I saw what he did to the Green Bay Packers a couple years ago. One of the more dominant performances I've seen in any sport in the last few years. But that's not the Colin Kaepernick I saw last year. I don't think it's the guy we're going to see this year. I don't think we're going to see it again, really. And I'm not hoping failure on the guy, but when I'm realistic, I don't see it coming from the 49ers this year. And I think that offense is kind of going to be a mess, because I don't think Carlos Hyde's going to be able to get it going behind that offensive line. Now, why are they going to win? Call me crazy here, but what about Vernon Davis? There's been a couple reports that he looks good in camp. I'll believe it when I see it. But when Kaepernick was at his best, he was really using Vernon Davis. And when a quarterback like Kaepernick, when he uses the tight end, that puts linebackers on their heels. Make a little pump fake to the tight end over the middle, and the linebacker says, whoa, 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 he's going to Davis. Then Kaepernick takes off. That's when his legs can become valuable. Torrey Smith downfield, that's not going to help out Kaepernick using his athleticism at all, I don't think. But Vernon Davis, the relationship between Vernon Davis and Colin Kaepernick is extremely important. It's the most important two-player relationship on this roster. If Vernon Davis can get going, then I trust Carlos Hyde to have some more holes open up for him. I see the Niners this year going, we'll say 5-11. It wouldn't blow my mind if they drop down to a 4-12 team and really just try to rebuild. I don't think it's their year. Now on to the Seattle Seahawks, looking to make it back to the Super Bowl. They traded away Max Unger, which I found a bit strange. That Max Unger move, it was not my favorite. They also lost James Carpenter, Byron Maxwell. They added Jimmy Graham. Big piece for them. Added Atiba Rubin, another big piece, and wide receiver Tyler Lockett. Tyler Lockett, however you want to pronounce it. Someone tweet me and correct me. So why are the Seahawks going to win? Well, there are many, many reasons, of course. That defense remains absolutely elite. They're going to win if Russell Wilson grows as a quarterback. And what I mean by that is dropping back, scanning the field, passing. That's something he's already very good at, but it's something there's still room for improvement in. Just like any quarterback. And if Wilson can grow in that area while not relying on Marshawn Lynch, then the Seahawks are going to be even better off when Marshawn Lynch eventually retires or goes to play one last year with the Oakland Raiders when he's old and not producing much, which I can still see at the end of his bizarre career. Now you've got Carson Baldwin on the outside. Maybe you have Lockett in on the slot. I really like that idea. I think he's going to be great, runs great routes. And if Jimmy Graham can produce, can he though? That's something that I'm going to be watching. Now it's, the big story the last few days is Jimmy Graham going to block? He says he is. How good is he going to be at that? I don't know. He didn't have to block a lot in New Orleans. If you didn't notice, he didn't put his hand in the dirt too often there. He didn't have to. I think a lot of people are expecting this 1,000-yard, 12-touchdown year from Jimmy Graham. I think it's going to be more the 850, 900 with 8 touchdowns. But just because it's going to be lower than expectations doesn't mean it's bad. It's becoming this hot new idea to, the hot take of the week where people say, hey guys, Jimmy Graham's not really going to make much of an impact. I mean, congratulations. Yeah, it's a great hot take you have there. He's still going to be fine. Still going to be probably a top 3 tight end. And again, that defense, that's going to win games for the Seahawks. Why are they going to lose? Well, if there's any reason, it's that offensive line. Center, right guard, right tackle, all of them do worry me. Are they going to just run heavy to the left side? Will defenses catch on? Or are they going to try to trust that right side? Really, they should, but is it going to hold up for Marshawn Lynch? I don't know. Is it going to hold up when teams try to pressure Russell Wilson? I don't know. There was a time in the NFC Championship before they came back and embarrassed the Packers where the Packers were getting to Russell Wilson, and that's why they started out the game with a lead. Eventually the Seahawks shut it down and made a great run. But what's that right side of the line going to do? I'll be interested to watch that through the first few games. I see the Seahawks winning the division, maybe a 12-4 record right about there. I do think they might have a slow start like they did this past season, and it's going to bring on, are the Seahawks, what's wrong with the Seahawks? Is it Russell Wilson? Do people hate Russell Wilson in the dressing room? Just give it a few weeks. Just like this last year, they're going to win again, and I think they make a run at home field advantage. I really do. And last, but never least, the St. Louis Rams. They lost Sam Bradford, Zach Stacy, Jake Long, Joe Barksdale, Kendall Langford. But they added Nick Foles, Nick Fairley, and my boy Todd Gurley. This team is at a fork in the road. They need to pick a direction that they're going to go because the last couple of years they've gotten by on, you know what? We're building talent here. We're building talent. We've got this great defensive line. We're building something. Well, it's about time they did something with what they're building. Now, why are they going to win? Well, number one, they need Nick Foles to be competent. Can Nick Foles succeed outside of Philly? Can he stay healthy? Both of those are question marks. He doesn't need to be Aaron Rodgers, Andrew Luck. He just needs to be around the Flacco line. Just give me some Joe Flacco-esque production. Don't mess things up, because I think the running game has potential. Todd Gurley, Trey Mason. Gurley is coming along nicely. Again, he's a guy I'm going to be targeting in my drafts. Trey Mason, I think, is an extremely good second option. Keep those two together for a few years, I think the Rams are laughing. If they're both healthy, incredible combination. Again, Nick Foles needs to do well, so teams aren't stacking the box. And the last reason the Rams are going to win, of course, is that defensive line. They added Nick Fairley to it, Aaron Donald there, Michael Brockers, and the talent they have there. That's going to keep games close. I don't think the Rams are going to get blown out often. I really don't. And that defensive line, whether you're running, whether you're passing, they're going to be in your face. Now, why will they lose that offensive line? The O-line in front of Nick Foles. I don't like it. I don't yet like that, and I don't like their wide receiving group. Brian Quick, Kenny Britt, Stedman Bailey, Tavon Austin. It's a lot of number 3 receivers. Brian Quick I do like. We'll call him a number 2, but I really wish they would grab an impact guy. Maybe Tavon Austin wakes up from his long slumber, but I doubt that. I think he's still just a gadget guy that we're going to hear a bunch of fluff about. So until that's figured out, I see the Rams going around 8-8, having that defense carrying them. And unless Nick Foles really is a revelation, I think that's where they end up. So that's it. That's all. That wraps up every team in the NFL we've now gone through. If this is just the first or second podcast you're listening to, go back through the last few episodes and get yourself caught up, because through the summer, maybe you've got a social life, a job, those are things that people have, I suppose. And maybe you're just a baseball fan or something and you lose track of football. Jump back through the last few podcasts, get yourself caught up, find out where everyone has landed and what every team looks like. Your favorite team and the ones that you don't hear so much about, like the Rams, like the Cardinals, these teams that just don't get the national airplay. So as always, you can check out the podcast on iTunes and Stitcher, as I said. Like it, leave me a little 5-star rating. You'll be gifted with my eternal friendship. I promise you that. It's not worth much, but it comes in handy when you need it. And then head over to thebackupunter.com. There will be some content there. Follow along on Twitter at @thebackupunter, or like it on Facebook at @thebackupunter. If you do that, you'll get all of the articles tweeted or posted right into your news feed, so you don't need to go out of your way. So my name's Keegan Matheson. This has been episode number 18 of the Backup Punter podcast. Over the next couple weeks, I'm going to be taking a look around training camps. Which news is fluff? Most of it is. Which news should you buy into? It's valuable, but when you find it, that's what can set you apart in your fantasy football drafts. So we're going to try to find that together. Hopefully we'll get you over the hump in some weekly fantasy football matchups this year with weekly sleepers, studs, duds, streaming defenses, stuff like that. So we'll get through training camp the next few weeks and build up to the 2015 fantasy football season. And if we get bored, maybe we'll talk about real football along the way. So my name's Keegan Matheson, hoping that all of your punts in life stop on the 1-yard line. Let's talk next week.